Hi, and welcome in to another edition of Right on Rangers Live, coming at you after a 34-3 Texas victory over the Oklahoma Sooners in the Red River rivalry game. Let's go, hook 'em horns. It's a great day to be a Texas fan, especially when you consider what happened last year in the Red River rivalry game. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit here. But it is a good day to be a Longhorns fan. I appreciate all of y'all tuning in. We're going to let some people make their way into the live stream here. Of course, here at Right on Rangers, we cover everything sports, but we put a big emphasis on all the teams we love from the great state of Texas, including the Longhorns and especially the Longhorns during the college football season. Appreciate all of y'all tuning in and choosing Right on Rangers for all of your Texas Longhorns post-game content. We're going to break it down a little bit for you guys, mostly just fun stuff today. I mean, look, a little bit of a slow start if we're being a little bit picky. I think that it was 3-0 at one point, and then the Longhorns went on to score 34 unanswered points in this one. Look, I can't say, even in the first quarter when Quinn Ewers was shaking off a little bit of the rust, I can't say this game ever felt like it was Oklahoma's for the taking. It just felt like from the beginning, the Longhorns had control, maybe weren't as sharp as they needed to be. Again, maybe knocking off some of the rust from the bye week. Who knows? Quinn Ewers, definitely, I think you would have liked to have seen him had a little bit of a stronger performance heading into the big game next week against UGA as the Bulldogs come to town. We're going to preview that matchup later. But nevertheless, you get the win. And Quinn Ewers did just enough to make this a pretty non-competitive game late. I mean, 34-3 again. This one never really felt in doubt. We're going to highlight some of the players of the game, go through some of the key moments with you, all that good stuff. And of course, take your comments and questions. And we'll talk a little bit of other games, other big games around college football as well. There were some other ones today that caught our attention. We'll be talking pretty much anything y'all want college football related at the end of the show. We love to go through all the major news headlines, all that good stuff. So again, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. All right, now let's talk players of the game here. I think we would be remiss to not lead with James Wisner, although Wisner almost ended up being a little bit of a goat in this one and not the good type, as Wisner on a huge run fumbled into the end zone. It was a 7-3 ball game at that point. Wisner takes it all the way down to about the 2 or 3 yard line, fumbles it into the end zone, and it was a foot race at that point. It looked like potentially it was going to be anybody's ball, and you had a huge Bolden hustle play. Bolden is running down the sideline, probably about 10 yards behind Wisner as Wisner's taken off, looking like maybe scoring a touchdown, gets stopped a little bit short. And because Bolden doesn't give up on that play, he recovers that football in the corner of the end zone. Easily could have been a Sooner ball there. And who knows what would have happened at that point? Who knows how that could have changed the tide of this game if OU is able to recover that Wisner fumble. I don't even want to think about it, but I am thrilled to see hustle plays like that. Those are the kinds of plays that, don't always end up with touchdowns, but those hustle type plays that often get unnoticed. Bolden hustling down the sideline the whole way. Johnny on the spot, ready to pick up that fumble in the end zone. That was huge. I don't know if OU wins the game, even if they recover that fumble, but nevertheless, you don't want to think about the alternatives. So for Bolden to recover that fumble in the end zone, put the Longhorns up 14-3, felt like the game was basically over at that point. Then it was kind of an avalanche. Back-to-back series, the Longhorns forced fumbles. You had Hill forcing a fumble, and Hill was all over the place for the Longhorns today on defense. 6 tackles, 4 assists, 8 total tackles, forced fumble. Williams had 4 tackles as well. He forced a fumble. You had back-to-back series for the Sooners with fumbles being forced and directly leading to points opportunities. I think one of those led to a touchdown. I think the other actually led to a field goal opportunity that Auburn missed. It was kind of funny. OU tried to ice Auburn at the end of the half there, missed, so it didn't work out too well for them. But then Auburn misses again anyways. I really thought he was going to come through on that second attempt after they iced him on the miss. And they were saying on the broadcast that he just seemed a little bit off in warm-ups. Don't know. He ended up hitting, I think, 2 out of 3 field goals total. But still, you would have liked to have seen him nail that one right before halftime. Didn't really end up mattering, a little bit inconsequential. But to see those back-to-back forced fumbles for OU by both Hill and Williams Jr., that was a huge momentum shifter going into halftime. I really feel like that sequence at the end of the second quarter, the game was over at that point. I don't think anybody thought Oklahoma was coming back to make it a competitive game after that sequence of events. You have the Bolden recovery after the Wisner fumble in the end zone to put the Horns up 14-3. I think Wisner had a 43-yard touchdown run after the very first fumble to put the Horns up 21-3. Then you had another forced fumble, and the Horns didn't get points out of it, but they went into halftime, I believe, up 21-3 at that point. Yes, 21-3. Was a pretty slow third quarter. Horns 24-3 lead at the end of 3, and then get some style points there late in the fourth. OU fans start shuffling out. This was a little bit of a revenge game for the Longhorns. Last year, really should have beat Oklahoma. I don't think there's really a whole lot of excuses for it. The Horns did not play a good game last year at Red River. Should have beat Oklahoma. And, of course, the infamous T-shirts that come out in the OU locker room after the game. Oklahoma only fears God. Texas fears Oklahoma. That they had that up on the bulletin board. The Longhorns did all offseason, all season long. And look, you can do that after you win. I don't think I'm going to sit here and pretend like you can't do any showboating after a dub. That's not my style. Have some fun with it. But there is taking it maybe a little bit too far. I don't know. I've seen worse, to be honest. But look, when you're going into these rivalry games, you got to use everything as motivation. And clearly the Longhorns used that celebration in the OU locker room after last year's Red River. And they used it for fuel. And they ended up getting a big win today. 34-3 was not ever particularly close at any point in time. Longhorns 6-0 on the season, 2-0 in SEC play. Let me get to some comments here in just a little bit. Hey, what's going on? Harrison, thanks for tuning in. Yep, UGA Texas is going to be a huge game next week. By the way, on TikTok, sorry I can't get the comments up for y'all from YouTube and Facebook, Instagram, X, all that, but I'll read them out for you. We got some Georgia fans in the chat. It's going to be a fun week next week. UGA coming to town. Looks like they're going to end up coming in 5-1, Horns 6-0. Maybe a top 4. It's definitely going to be a top 5 showdown. Definitely going to be a top 5 showdown. So that's probably going to be the biggest game of the season. And when I say that, I mean for all of college football. I think UGA, Bama had that top spot, but I think Texas, Georgia is going to take over that top spot. I think that game is going to be the game of the season. Hopefully, it doesn't end up being a close one. So hopefully it doesn't end up being very entertaining, but I think the hype is going to be there, no doubt. I think Georgia's going to be tough. It would not surprise me if the Horns drop next week. I do think it's going to be a very competitive game, and Texas has a knack for showing up in the big moments. You think about the Bama game. You saw how they performed on the road against Michigan. I don't think that Texas is going to get blown out by any means. I'm just saying I could see the game going either way. Would it shock me if they drop against UGA next week? No, it wouldn't. Would it shock me if they won? No, it wouldn't either. In fact, I think the home crowd, Texas's reputation for getting up in these big games, look, it's really flipped the script. If you've been a Longhorn fan for a long time, you know as well as I do in the early 2000s, we're talking, before Colt McCoy, and in the 2010s, obviously, the Longhorns went through a pretty tough time after McCoy went to the NFL. Just had a tough, difficult journey finding their footing after that. But there were some big years where the Longhorns just could not win the big game. They would go into a big game, maybe with an undefeated record, maybe 4-1. And I think that this year, clearly a lot different. Clearly a lot different. I think that the Horns actually, even going back to last year, have gotten up for these big games. And I think that they are going to get up for this one as well. We'll keep on rolling here. Somebody on TikTok, it is hilarious. So ironic how the people that sometimes say, do you even watch football, make the dumbest comments. So the comment was, Georgia is trash, by the way. Come on now. Do you even watch football? Georgia is not trash. Georgia's a good program. They're obviously dropping a game to Bama early, and that was on the road. I don't know how you can really hold that against them. And look, have they struggled here and there against Kentucky? Today, what are they? They were up 34-17 last time I checked. So I definitely, by no means, am going to sit here and pretend like Georgia's not a good football team. They are a good football team. Now, have they shown it? Have they played their best football yet this year? That's debatable. But yeah, look, sometimes I absolutely have to read off these dumb comments and just bring them to light. And again, just so ironic that people add on, do you even watch football? Don't you know Georgia's trash? Come on now. I mean, I don't even know what to say to some of these comments. I really don't. Let me check on some of the scores around the league right now. So it's 34-24 right now. So it looks like UGA has got that game in control. Look, Texas struggled a little bit against Mississippi State. I'm not even going to try and pretend like Texas whomped Mississippi State. It was 35-13, I believe, but 34-24 right now at home. And looks like Georgia has the ball. 11 minutes left to go, 2nd and 5 from their own 35. So, look, they're going to get a win. I would be shocked to see Mississippi State mount any kind of comeback here, but we shall see. Look, a lot of football left, 11 minutes, a lot can happen. But SEC, in my opinion, is going to be survive and advance to an extent. I really do feel like the SEC has got some quality football teams. I don't really feel like anybody at this point is just straight up trash. Mississippi State, the record doesn't show it, but they played Texas pretty well. Now you got Mississippi State playing Georgia pretty well. I don't know. I'm not so sure. Mississippi State, I'm not going to crown them as being a good team, but they can hang around. And look, you got Vanderbilt knocking off Alabama. You had Bama barely beating South Carolina tonight. So for me, I don't know. I can't really sit here and say that there's any slouches in the SEC. I think it's totally survive and advance. It's a tough conference. If you can get wins on the road at home, take them. If you can get style points, even better. But with the playoff this year, the 12-team playoff, there's a lot less pressure for the style points. A lot less, I think. You can lose a game. Style points might matter for some of those teams, maybe with 2-3 losses. But I don't really think there's as big of an emphasis to style points at this point. I think if you get wins, you drop one game, even if you drop 2 games, you're probably going to make it as an SEC team. If Georgia loses to Texas next weekend, it's not going to surprise me if they end up still making the playoff, if they were to run the table a little bit. So let's go to some key stats. Tristan, what's up, by the way? Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's go Horns. Great game. Great game overall. A little bit of a slow start, but we're being a little bit nitpicky. Hope that we're able to get a win next week. It's going to be a tough game against Georgia. I said going into the bye week, I would love to go 1-1. I just don't want to drop both games. I don't want to drop Red River, then go back home and drop Georgia. So I do think at this point that we have got a legitimate shot against Georgia. Not going to be surprised with either outcome at this point. And with the 12-team playoff, if the Horns were to drop this game, can't say it really makes a huge dent in their playoff chances. We'll go ahead and keep things rolling here with other comments. Yeah, Alabama's games, we talked about it. They barely beat South Carolina. Of course, they lost to Vanderbilt. That South Carolina game was today. So, I don't know. Bama's got a lot of question marks around them right now. And maybe makes the Georgia loss to Bama look a little bit worse. But, yeah, I can't say I am super impressed with Alabama at this point. Let me keep on rolling here. Baseball Network, yeah, it's too hard to do everything. This is why, like we said, I need a moderator here. Let me see what I missed on TikTok, by the way. I did catch the one TikTok comment where somebody said Georgia was trash and then said that I don't know football because I said Georgia's a good team. I don't know. That one I saw. I think that kind of soured me on the TikTok comments a little bit. Texas is going to win the SEC. That I could see. That I could see happening. Now, look, SEC for me, it would be nice, but it's kind of how I feel about division titles in baseball. Like, who cares? The national championship is really all that matters. Growing up, I feel like there was a bigger emphasis on conference titles. Like, yes, it is nice. It is nice to win a conference title. Like Texas winning the SEC in their first year in the SEC is a big accomplishment. But let's be honest, it's about championships at this point. And keep on going. See if I missed anything else. Texas to the Natty. That I do think is a real possibility. Now, it's a gauntlet. You're going through that 12-team playoff. Who knows? But I could definitely see Texas in the national championship. Look, they were one play away from being in the national championship last year. That Washington-Texas game, yes, it felt like Washington had control, but the reality is that game came down to one play at the end from within the 20-yard line, Texas with an opportunity to score, and a little bit of a better throw and catch in the end zone probably gets Texas the score and the win. So that was one play away from a national championship appearance last year. Who do I got? Dodgers or Mets? Dodgers or Mets? I'm at this point, I'm going to go Dodgers. I said the Dodgers were my pick in the NL. I was way off on the Orioles pick, but I said Dodgers are going all the way to the World Series. I'm not going to be surprised if the Dodgers make it. I'd probably rather see the Mets, but my instinct says Dodgers are going to the World Series. I think they kind of slayed the Padres dragon. I think the Padres were probably their biggest potential threat in the NL. The Mets do seem to be a little bit of a team of destiny, but I think the Dodgers have too many weapons. It's just not going to surprise me if they make it all the way. Let me highlight some players of the game for the Horns today. Danny, what's up, by the way? Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you. If you're still hanging out, thank you for supporting the channel. Let me keep going here. Yankees doing pretty well. Yeah, I think that the Yankees-Dodgers is what MLB wants. I don't know if there's any conspiracy theorists out there when it comes to baseball, but I do think that Dodgers-Yankees has MLB absolutely salivating right now. We'll see. I'm really excited. Hey, good for the Guardians getting past Google today. I would love to see the Guardians knock off the Yankees, but you know MLB wants that Dodgers-Yankees matchup 100%. 100%. All right, let me keep going here. I'll come back to comments in just a little bit. Let me go to some players of the game and just some notable players in general. So Wisner, we talked about him, 118 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown, had a long of 43 yards, also had 4 receptions for 12. Quinn Ewers on the day, Ewers, 199 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. That interception was pretty bad. Had a wide open receiver, overthrew him. He had a few overthrows today. I'm really hoping this was the game for Quinn where he shakes off the rust a little bit. Did not look his sharpest, but he has a knack for rising to the occasion against the big time opponents. I really do think that he is going to show out against Georgia. I would be betting on that. He definitely last year going into the Bama game, I don't looked like amazing, but then he absolutely showed out in that Bama game. So I'm counting on Quinn to bounce back next week. Helm was a big target. He was a big target today. 5 receptions, 91 yards. That was fun at the end. Helm gets a pass from Golden. Golden missed a big opportunity early on in the game. Kind of was throwing off his back foot on that trick play. Should have had a touchdown, but redeems himself a little bit with a big pass down the left sideline. Helm was a big target today. 5 receptions, 91 yards, a touchdown, long of 30. Gunnar Helm was all over the place. Beyond that, not a lot of notable receiving days. I was surprised. Isaiah Bond, 1 reception, 5 yards. I think he was targeted maybe 4 times, maybe 5 times, but surprising to see Isaiah Bond so quiet today. I don't know if they were just doing double coverages a lot on him or if he just didn't have that connection with Quinn Ewers today. I'd have to go back, rewatch the game a little bit. But Bond, for me, I don't know what the status is. Again, just didn't seem like the connection was there. And then was there a little bit of an injury? Did I see? I had the game on mute in the second half while I was doing a couple of other things, but let me see if there's an injury update on Bond. So he headed to the locker room, appeared to tweak an injury earlier in the game, entered as the Longhorns' leading rusher. Less than a minute to go in the first half, he ended up heading back to the locker room. Let me see here. It doesn't see if there's a whole lot of other updates at this point. I don't know. It's not really covering that big time. We'll see. I don't know if I can get it on the fly here. I'm going to keep on trying, but it says here, this is from his agent, all right? Just spoke to Isaiah Bond. Damian Butler, Bond's agent, said via X, he's out for the rest of the game, but nothing major. So that's directly from the agent right there, Isaiah Bond's agent. So nothing major. Hopefully we see him for Georgia next time. Look, I think, in my opinion, and I said this at the beginning of the show, I think early on you saw that Texas was in control. Yes, it wasn't a fast start, but I think you saw Texas was in control early, and I think that had to play a big part in Texas deciding to shut down Bond for this one. I would have done the same thing. I don't think that you at all want to push Bond in a game like this. It was clear that Texas was in control, dominating. The defense especially, we're going to talk about the defense in a little bit. This defense is ferocious. It's for real. I think the coaching staff saw we got this game under control. We don't need Isaiah Bond today. Get him ready for UGA. So Isaiah Bond's agent coming out and saying out for the game, but nothing major. That's all they're giving us at this point. We'll have to see what other updates we get. Let me keep going here with comments and things of that nature. We're going to talk about the defense here in just a sec. Yeah, I hope Bama keeps on faltering too. Look, they had plenty of success. I don't think anybody feels bad for Bama fans, much like when Texas loses, nobody feels bad for Texas fans. So, yeah, I don't think anybody minds seeing Bama look a little human for once. We keep on going. Yeah, Texas, only SEC team worth anything this season. Look, they appear to be the only SEC team that is consistently putting out good performances. I mean, look, they looked a little bit shaky today in the first quarter, but you felt Texas was in control this entire game. Mississippi State, that game, again, maybe for a second, a little bit of rust there, but I don't know. A little bit of a slow start, not even rust, but it ended up being 35-13. Like, Texas really hasn't had any close games yet. Now we'll see if we get our first one against Georgia next week. Helpful that it's at home. Helpful that Georgia is struggling a little bit. Right now, it's 40-24. So Georgia tacks on another touchdown here. 3:33 left. So Georgia is going to get out of that game. But look, Mississippi State gave Texas a hard time for a second. I mean, Texas won by 3 touchdowns eventually, just like it looks like UGA is going to do here in a second. But for me, SEC is a tough conference. Survive in advance. You can get a few style points along the way, great. But in my mind, with the 12-team playoff, survive in advance. This isn't you lose one game and your playoff hopes are gone. This is keep winning ball games, keep that ranking where it needs to be, get into the 12-team playoff, see what you can do from there. Let me keep rolling here. So let's talk a little defense here. So we talked already about the 2 studs forcing fumbles back-to-back. You had Williams, you had Hill forcing those fumbles in the second quarter on back-to-back drives. This defense is legit. I think this could be the best defense in the country. I don't think that is a reach at all. You look at the Texas Longhorns schedule, you look and see the results that they put out this year so far. 13 points against Mississippi State, 3 points against Oklahoma, 3 points against Louisiana Monroe, 7 points against UTSA, 12 points against Michigan, 0 points given up against Colorado State. So the most points Texas has given up in a single game this year is 13. And that was to Mississippi State. 12 was the next highest against Michigan. Like, this defense is for real. Benda is playing out of his mind this year. Hill, Williams, all those guys look really, really good. This defense is firing on all cylinders. And that's where they need to be going into a tough matchup against Georgia. I am really curious to see what the line is on that Georgia game. Let me see if I can pull it up right now for y'all. Texas versus Georgia betting line for next week. Let's see what the opening odds are. I don't know if we're going to get one or not. It looks like Texas right now opening up as a 2.5-point favorite. So Georgia Bulldogs getting some underdog value here. 2.5 points is the spread for that game in Austin against UGA. I'm going to say Texas wins that game. Might have some moments here and there where it's dicey, but I think Texas wins that game. I think Georgia is going to play really, really well, but I think Texas just has a knack for showing up in these big moments. I really do feel confident Texas has a great game, and they show out at home against Georgia and firmly cement themselves as the number 1 team. But right now, the Horns are in great position. Even if they drop the game against Georgia, they're looking great for postseason. They do have a tough game at the end of the year against A&M. Kentucky could be a tough game. You've also, I think, got Vanderbilt on the schedule. Hey, look, Vandy played Alabama well. You can't take anybody for granted in the SEC. So you got Georgia, then you got Vandy, then you got Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, and then A&M. There's some good games in there. There are some good games in there. I'm not taking anybody for granted. But I think as we look at the schedule, Georgia, obviously the big game. And then I think you say Kentucky and A&M. I really don't think Arkansas, Florida should be that questionable. I know Arkansas had a big game last week, a big win last week. But I think that Texas should take care of business against Vandy, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky. I think the two big games, Georgia, A&M, that slightly concern me, but I think Texas can get wins in both of those games 100%. All right, let's keep things rolling here. I don't have a whole lot else in the notes department. We talked about players of the game. I'd probably go Hill with the 8 total tackles, 6 tackles, solo, 4 assists. I'd probably go Hill as my defensive player of the game along with that forced fumble. After that, I think you got to go Wisner. Yes, he did have the fumble, but 118 yards on the ground with the touchdown, 4 receptions to add in there. Maybe you go Helm as your number 2 for offensive player of the game. Helm today, 5 receptions, almost 100 yards on the day. So I'm going Wisner and Helm for players of the game offensively. Yeah, the OU horses didn't move all game. I love that, Troy. I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, you didn't hear the OU fight song very much today, did you? And look, y'all know me. I like to rub it in a little bit. I'm not obnoxious here on the show, but yes, let's have a little fun with this one, shall we? OU got to have their cigars and their really cool T-shirts last year. Oklahoma only fears God. All right. Good for you. How's that working? How's that working for you this year? Look, Texas should have won last year. They should have won this game last year. Last year was a choke job. Like they choked last year. They soiled the bed. There's no way OU should have won last year. This year's result should have been what happened last year. So glad to see Texas avenge the L from the 2023 season. And they left no doubt today. I don't think there's any question who the better team was. Texas is just in a different class right now than a lot of teams. Can they be beat? Sure. Anything can happen on any given Saturday. Georgia could come into Austin next week and get a win. Do I feel pretty good about the Horns' chances? Yes. They are a big game team. They have proven that over the past 2 years multiple times. They are a big game team. You have not seen the Horns get embarrassed. And when I say embarrassed, I mean blown out, ugly. You have not seen the Horns get embarrassed in big games over the past couple of years. You think about their back-to-back showdowns with Alabama, the Bryce Young first game in Austin. Horns could have won that game. Last year with Milroe, Horns obviously won by double digits in Tuscaloosa. You had the game against Michigan in the Big House. You win that one. More often than not, this Horns team, a lot of the guys from last year carrying over to this year, they get up for the big games. We were joking in the early 2000s, Texas would get on a roll, and then they just could never have that big performance in the big games pre-Colt McCoy. And then, of course, we all know the disaster that was the early 2010s. But Texas in 2023-24 shows up for the big games. Look, it's not going to surprise me if we get something like we got last year against Bama, maybe a 10-point victory, something that's maybe a little bit close early on, but the Horns pull away late. Something like that would not surprise me for next week. Look, not a whole lot shocks me anymore in college football. It's tough to go undefeated. It is tough to go undefeated in this sport. But I do think the Horns have a good, legitimate chance to do it. I think Sark had a great game play calling. There were open receivers all day long. Quinn Ewers just was not hitting it. Quinn Ewers was rusty. His interception was on an overthrow that could have gone for a big gain. The receiver was wide open. Ewers just overthrew him, and that happened multiple times today. I thought Steve Sarkisian called an outstanding game, did a great job getting guys open. He was pushing a lot of the right buttons. I think Sark is on a different level this year with the play calling, even more so than last year. And I think he has got this team playing at an incredibly elite spot. We'll see what the carryover is into next week, but you got to feel good getting the win at Red River. Now, at this point, you get your biggest test of the season against Georgia in Austin. I hope that is just an incredibly raucous, hellish environment for the Bulldogs. It's going to be fun around Austin building up to this game. I would love to be there. I would love to be there. Last game I went to was the 500th game at DKR. We were playing Iowa State with the chance to go to the Big 12 championship. I think West Virginia or Oklahoma State, I think they were playing. One of them needed to lose for us to get in, and they did lose. And then the Horns beat up on Iowa State. I think that was Brock Purdy's last year, if I'm not mistaken, his senior year. And then 500th game, that stadium was absolutely lit, and it was a lot of fun. Would love to see something like that happen for this game. Hope the environment is 100 next weekend for Georgia. Let me keep going here. I'm going to get some comments here. I haven't checked them out in a while. We'll see what we got going on. Let me check TikTok. What's up to everybody tuning in? Appreciate all y'all. Josh, what's up, man? Thank you. Texas, hook 'em horns, man. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think we're pretty good. Baseball Network, thanks for tuning in. First 6-0 start since 2009. There we go. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. 2009, that would have been Colt McCoy years. First 6-0 start since 2009. That would have been back Colt McCoy years. You love to see that. Absolutely. So next week, Georgia is the primetime game. 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Texas time, 4:30 out here for me in Vegas. Man, I cannot wait for that game. Tomorrow, we'll be back to talk Cowboys. Cowboys will be playing, I believe, in the 3:25 time slot. That'll be a lot of fun. They are playing the Lions at home. Lions, I'm sure, are going to be out for some blood, getting some revenge from last year. I think y'all remember the controversy in last year's game with the Cowboys and Lions, the 2-point ineligible lineman in the end zone catching the 2-point conversion or the touchdown, whatever it was. Look, it's going to be a great game. I am excited for Cowboys-Lions tomorrow. I don't know what the line is on that game. Let me see if I can get the spread on that game, see who is favored. Looks like it is a pretty tight one. Let me see. We've got the Lions at -115. Detroit Lions are 3.5-point favorites. Is that right? I think that number has shrunk a little bit, but the Lions slight favorites on the road against the Cowboys. Here we go. All right, then. I hope the Cowboys use that as motivation, but I will be back tomorrow after the Cowboys game to talk about the result. Hopefully after the Cowboys win, that is the plan. So if we're doing a time guesstimate here, we're going to try and go live right after the afternoon, the 3:25 games, right in between the last afternoon game and Sunday Night Football. That'll be a great time for us to go live. I think we'll plan on that. So come back and join us. If you want to talk some NFL tomorrow, we obviously talk a lot of Cowboys, but we'll talk anything NFL at the end of the show especially. So come back and join us. Hey, if you're not following the channel yet, you're not subscribed, would greatly appreciate you hit that follow or subscribe button. Get updated with all of our latest and greatest content. Hit that notification button, notification bell. Get notified every time we go live. Would greatly appreciate y'all doing that. Thank you for your support of the channel. All of the likes, the views, the shares means a lot to me. Thank you so much. Glad we can be coming on live today after a Longhorns victory. Big game next week against UGA. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hook 'em horns. Appreciate all of y'all tuning in. We'll see some of y'all tomorrow for the Cowboys stream. We'll be back right after all the afternoon games come to a close before Sunday Night Football. JJ, what's up, man? Hook 'em horns. Appreciate you. Hey, tune in tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Great rest of your weekend ahead. And as I always say to end every show, God bless and hook 'em.